Welcome back, explorers. Right now the trail is hugging the biggest freshwater lake on the whole planet, and somewhere down that rocky shoreline sits one of the most charming little harbor towns in America. It is a place of painters and fishermen, of pizza and pothole waterfalls, of one great marsh that gave a town its name. Lace those boots tight, because today we are hiking into the story of Grand Marais. Picture the tip of Minnesota's Arrowhead, the far northeast corner where the state leans out into Lake Superior and nearly shakes hands with Canada. This is Cook County, the North Shore, a ribbon of cliffs and cedar and crashing water. Grand Marais sits about 110 miles up the shore from Duluth, the last real town before the wilderness swallows the map. Follow me up the coast. The name is pure French voyageur. Grand Marais means the Great Marsh, and those canoe-paddling fur traders from Montreal named it for a soggy little wetland, 20 acres or less, that once sat right at the level of the lake. Say it the local way and it comes out closer to Grand Marais. Not exactly a glamorous name for a gorgeous town, but it's stuck for nearly 2 centuries. Long before any Frenchman scribbled it on a map, the Ojibwe knew this spot as Gichigami, the double body of water, for the twin curves of the sheltered bay. And that is the real secret of Grand Marais. A pair of rocky arms reaches out into a savage lake and cups one of the only natural harbors on this entire wild coast. Safe water on a shore that rarely offers any. This whole region is the homeland of the Anishinaabe, the Ojibwe people who have lived along these waters for many generations. They call the Great Lake Gichigami, the vast sea, and their birch-bark canoes traced this coastline long before the fur trade arrived. We pass through their country with gratitude and respect, mindful that every overlook we admire today was known and named here first. Here is a twist most folks miss. The famous American Fur Company, the outfit built on beaver pelts, actually turned to fish. In 1835, with beaver prices sliding, the company launched a commercial fishing operation right along this coast between Grand Marais and the Pigeon River. Barrels of salted lake trout and whitefish, hauled from the cold deep, became the new frontier fortune on Gichigami. The man behind the gamble was Ramsay Crooks, who ran the company and moved its headquarters to La Pointe on Madeline Island to oversee the nets. The fishing years ran from about 1835 to 1841, and while the venture never made anyone rich, it planted a crucial idea on this shore. The wealth of the North Shore would not come from fur, it would come from the water. Let the lake do the talking for a second. That water is cold enough to take your breath away in July, and it stretches so far it curves with the earth. Sailors here will tell you Superior does not give up her dead, and standing on these rocks you believe every word of it. Breathe it in, then let us keep climbing. By the late 1800s, a new wave arrived, and they came from the fjords. Norwegian immigrants, along with Swedes and other Scandinavians, looked at this steep, cold coast and saw home. Even today, nearly 1 in 4 people in Cook County claims Norwegian roots. They brought their language, their lutefisk, their stubborn work ethic, and above all, they brought their knowledge of the sea. These families built commercial fishing into the beating heart of Grand Marais. They rowed sturdy little herring skiffs out into freezing swells, set gill nets by hand, and cured their catch in weathered fish houses perched right on the shoreline. Lake trout, whitefish, and the silvery herring runs fed the town for generations. That salt and cedar heritage still flavors everything about this place. Now for the town's most photographed landmark. Out at the end of the breakwater stands the Grand Marais Lighthouse, a trim white steel tower first lit in 1922. It replaced an earlier wooden light that the storms had battered to pieces. Walk the breakwall on a calm evening and it feels like a postcard. Walk it in a November gale and you understand exactly why they built it. The light needed a wall to stand on, and that story runs even deeper. Congress approved harbor improvements here back in 1873, and by 1883 crews finished a 300-foot breakwater reaching out to narrow the harbor mouth. The very next year, a single storm drove 11 ships to shelter behind it in one night. This little stone arm turned a marsh into a genuine port of refuge. Every light needs a keeper, and the keeper needs a home. The old keeper's house still stands on the point, and today it serves as a museum run by the County Historical Society, its rooms full of the tools and photographs of the fishing families. It is the kind of place where you can almost smell the pipe smoke and hear the foghorn. History you can walk right into. Look at that harbor from up here. 2 rocky arms, 1 calm blue pool, and a whole town gathered around it like people around a hearth. Everything Grand Marais became, the fishing, the art, the wanderers passing through, it all pooled right here in this sheltered water. Hold that view. It explains the rest of the story. Here comes my favorite plot twist. This rugged fishing town is also an artist's town. In 1947, a painting class of just 20 students gathered here for an 8-week summer session, and the Grand Marais Art Colony was born, the oldest art colony in the entire state of Minnesota. What drew them was simple. This light, this water, this shore, is almost impossible to stop painting. Ever since, artists have set up their easels right on these basalt ledges, chasing the way the low northern sun turns the lake to hammered silver. Watercolorists, printmakers, potters, and painters keep coming season after season. Grand Marais has been named among the best small art towns in America, and one honest look at that horizon tells you exactly why the brushes never stop. Down on the harbor sits another treasure, the North House Folk School, founded in 1997 in a cluster of old Forest Service warehouses at the foot of the Gunflint Trail. Its mission is to keep the old northern crafts alive. Here you can learn to weave, forge, carve, and bake the way people did before machines, hands busy and phones forgotten. The signature craft here is wooden boat building. Students bend and rivet planks into graceful canoes and Scandinavian-style boats, then actually launch them into the same harbor the herring fishermen once worked. Every summer, the school throws a wooden boat festival on the waterfront, sails snapping in the lake wind. It is living history, sawdust and all, and it draws makers from all over the country. Grand Marais is also a gateway, and the road it guards is legendary. The Gunflint Trail climbs northwest out of town for about 57 miles, a national scenic byway that dead-ends deep in the wilderness near the Canadian border. It began as an Ojibwe footpath, became a miner's dirt road in the 1890s, and was not fully paved until 1979. Adventure road in every sense. So why Gunflint? Along these lakes the Ojibwe and French found chert, a hard stone that throws a spark when you strike it, the perfect flint for a flintlock gun. That Gunflint stone gave the whole trail its name. Little details like that are scattered all over this landscape, waiting for a curious hiker to trip right over them. Feel the temperature drop as the trail ducks into the trees. That deep hush is the North Woods closing in around us, spruce and pine and paper birch running unbroken for 1,000,000 acres. This is the doorway to some of the wildest country left in the lower 48. Keep those boots moving. It only gets better from here. Beyond the Gunflint lies a paddler's paradise, the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness, more than 1,000 lakes stitched together by portage trails. No motors, no roads, just the dip of a paddle and the call of a loon echoing off the water at dusk. Grand Marais is the last outpost before you vanish into all that blue and green. Many an expedition begins with breakfast in town. Wrapping the whole thing is the Superior National Forest, established back in 1909 by proclamation of President Theodore Roosevelt. 3 million acres of lake-dotted wilderness, and the Ranger District office sits right in Grand Marais. Wolves, moose, black bears, and bald eagles all call it home. When people say this town sits on the edge of the wild, they are being quite literal about it. Now, all this hiking builds a serious appetite, so let us talk pizza. Since 1981, hungry travelers rolling in off the Gunflint Trail have piled into Sven and Ole's on Wisconsin Street. The name is a wink at those old Norwegian settlers, and the pies have become a genuine North Shore legend. A hot slice after a cold hike is basically a Grand Marais rite of passage. The country around town is absolutely stitched with waterfalls, and one of the best is close by. The Cascade River tumbles down a tight rocky gorge in a rapid-fire staircase of drops, spilling nearly 1,000 feet over its final 3 miles before it reaches the lake. In spring melt, it roars. In autumn, it runs golden under the maples. Either way, it is a showstopper. "14 miles up the shore from Grand Marais sits Judge C.R. Magney State Park, named for a Duluth mayor and judge who fought to protect these wild river gorges. The Brule River carves right through it, and a short but steep trail follows the water past the upper falls toward one of the strangest natural wonders in all of Minnesota. Meet the Devil's Kettle. Here the Brule River splits around a lump of volcanic rock. Half of it plunges 50 feet into a pool like a proper waterfall. The other half pours straight down into a giant pothole in the stone and simply vanishes. For a century, nobody could say where that water went. Underground, under the lake, off to the Mississippi, the mystery drove people wonderfully crazy. Curious souls threw everything into that hole to crack it. Ping pong balls, colored dye, even GPS trackers, and nothing ever came back out. Then in the fall of 2016, hydrologists simply measured the flow above and below the falls. 123 cubic feet per second went in, and 121 came back up just downstream. The water was resurfacing all along. Science 1, Devil 0. Sit with a river like this for a minute. All that power, all that noise, water that fell as rain on the highlands and is now racing home to the greatest lake on earth. There is something about the North Shore that slows your pulse and sharpens your senses at the very same time. This is why we hike. Let us catch 2 more falls. Down the shore waits the Temperance River, and the name is a proper North Shore joke. Most rivers here dump a gravel bar across their mouth. This one runs so fast it has no bar at all, so the old-timers called it Temperance, the river with no bar. It has carved deep, swirling potholes into solid rock, and the trail threads right along the churning edge. Further southwest glitters Gooseberry Falls, one of the most beloved stops on the whole shore, where the river drops in a series of broad, thundering curtains just steps from the road. It is the kind of waterfall where the mist reaches out and kisses your face on a warm day. Generations of Minnesota families have taken their very first North Shore photograph right at this railing. Keep going northeast toward the border, and you reach Grand Portage, known to the Ojibwe as Gichigami, the great carrying place. Here the Pigeon River drops in falls too fierce to paddle, so travelers shouldered their canoes on an 8.5-mile trail around them. For centuries, this portage was a superhighway of the fur trade, a crossroads of nations at the very top of the map. So there it is. Grand Marais, a town of barely 1,300 souls that somehow holds a natural harbor, a 1922 lighthouse, the oldest art colony in Minnesota, a folk school full of wooden boats, legendary pizza, and a wilderness road to the edge of the wild. Fishermen, painters, and paddlers all gathered around one sheltered blue bay. Few small towns pack in so much wonder. That is Grand Marais Explorers, the great marsh that grew into a treasure of the North Shore. If this hike stirred something in you, do give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring that bell so you never miss the next adventure. There is a whole planet of trails out there, and we are going to walk every one of them together. Until next time, keep exploring, and I will see you down the trail.